Hey, it's Benjie Cole, son of Al Cole from CBS Radio and host of People of Distinction, the talk that gives an in-depth view of some of the most dynamic, intelligent, and successful people on the planet. Run to our website, peopleofdistinction.org for more info, or you can always email me directly at benji@alcoleenterprises.com. And on the line with us today, we have Judy V Rentz. We're going to be discussing her amazing book, Fighting to Survive. Available for purchase through Amazon as well as barnesandnoble.com. And people, Judy was brought to our network, People of Distinction, today by some of the best publishers in the business, okay? Parchment Global Publishing. So if you or anybody you know have a book that they'd like moved, well, give yourself the best gift you could possibly give. Contact Parchment to move it for you. You can find out more information on them and their wonderful team at parchmentglobalpublishing.com. I love the fact that we have Judy here on the line. Her book is a memoir / self-help book, in a sense, where she is going to be talking about, about her own dealings with suicide, but then also a lot of the resources and things that she came across during her journey, because that's the main message here, people. There are resources. There is help out there. We're going to tackle a very, very small portion of it, but it's a profound discussion. And by the time we're done, you're going to want to run to her Amazon and Barnes & Noble page and pick up your copy, because it's that impactful. Sit back, strap in, have your notebooks, and get ready for a wonderful education, because Judy is the expert, okay? She's pulling from her experience, and she's going to be able to articulate everything much better than I ever could. Judy, first and foremost, welcome to People of Distinction, and thank you very much for being a guest with us today. How are you doing?
Thank you, Benji, and my same self. I suffer a little, but I'm on a mission. So I try to put on a happy face and bear through chronic pain that I have, but not everybody has that. So I'm just very happy and thrilled to be able to do this with you, and hopefully to put the message out there any way that I can get it out there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Listen, the pleasure is all ours, Judy. Again, I think what you're embarking upon is profound. I think what you need, even though you're not asking for it, I'm going to take the initiative. I'm going to say it here on our network. What you've done is commendable, because we know, people, how difficult it is generally for us to look in the mirror at ourselves, and recognize things about ourselves that we don't necessarily like. But then to take it a step further and to construct this metaphorical window, or this literary window of sorts, and allow the public to then see those blemishes and to then see those insecurities, takes so much bravery. And I'm going to assume here, we'll tackle inspiration in a bit, but I'll assume that the reason why you did that, Judy, is because you knew the words you were putting on the page would be beneficial. They were going to inspire. They were going to help. And on that note, that's going to lead me into my first question, Judy. Let's jump right into this. What inspired you to write this book?
Well, I became ill in June of 2007. Suddenly, I was a very vital human. I had gone to school after being a property manager, after being a mother, traveling around the country with my husband in his line of work. But I found the love of my life was landscaping, and I had people to help do the work. But I just became ill in June of 2007, a low back pain, and I kept on, but I would take breaks often because of low back pain. So finally it got so bad that I went to the doctor, and I live in Knoxville, Tennessee, which is a big medical city with the University of Tennessee Med Center. And you referred immediately to a back surgeon, and I did. I went to a very well-known, probably tops in the line in Knoxville, And he referred me on to his little line of what he thought would work, which was physical therapy. And when I went in to see him, I could hardly walk. I was holding onto the wall as I got in. I had such a severe low back pain through the big sacrum and the iliac bones, all the bones in your rear. But I could hardly get into his office. And this is after therapy and just rechecking in with him. But I couldn't sit, so I stood by the table, and he came in. I'll have to say he was very arrogant. But anyway, he walked in and said, "How are you?" And I go, "Well, I'm horrible." And I was about to cry, and I don't cry easily. And he said, "Well, I can't help you." And he was already at the door. And I said, "How am I going to live?" And I don't crush easily, but my knees were on the ground. And I said, "How am I going to live?" And he bluntly looked at me and said, "See a psychiatrist." And that's what most of us get told. I learned later through a lot of pain, research, and only one doctor that I had pudendal neuralgia, which is entrapment, which is also called the suicide disease. You can't live with this disease. Men get it. Also, I picture our bodies in 3 layers, and it's not a spinal issue. It's not a gut issue. It's a very vital nerve that crisscrosses in our lower half and round and about finally connects to our spine. But it also gets entrapped and in its canal that it runs in. And it just causes the most horrendous pain, worse than any childbirth. I've had 2. And for 6.5 years, my husband and I Google search, went to everybody. I went to mountain doctors after I'd gone through all the medical doctors, and they bluntly look at you and say, "I've never heard the word." And it takes years to learn that it's pudendal nerve. Finally, after close to 6 years, I found a doctor that I took papers to. My friend had to take me. I wasn't well enough. But my husband, about midnight, he had to retire when I got so bad one Sunday afternoon. You hang onto the bed. You're crawling in the floor. You're laying in the bathroom floor begging God to just let you die. Please, please let me die, because your insides are coming out. And I couldn't bear it any longer. My husband was still in Pittsburgh working. We were going back and forth as I found our little retirement home here at home in Knoxville. And I didn't know what to do. I couldn't find my primary, and I didn't have any specialist at the time. But I went to the local ER after being told by the clinic of my primary, "You can come stand around the building like all the other 100 flu patients." I said, "You don't understand." And I was down to about 88 pounds, and I'm 5'6". But anyway, I couldn't stand in the cold. I couldn't have stood that long. I went on to the hospital here, and a young resident tricked me. I said, "If you could just let me rest and get something for this pain." And I know he must have given me morphine, because it lasted about 10 minutes. And then he gave me another. And then he tricked me into signing a paper. And I was in such dire pain, I would have done anything. That's when I asked him, "If you could just let me rest and get away from this pain for just just a little while. I'll do anything. So I signed that paper, and I didn't know what the fourth floor was, but it's the psych and the drug ward. So I was locked up there. They took me up there. They took everything I had away. They didn't give me any pain meds at my doctor's, hydro something, but it certainly didn't work. And then I had migraine medicine, but I always get a migraine in closed-in places, and this was. But anyway, they took everything I owned, even ibuprofen. That was just about all I had. And took all that away from me, put me in the room with the patient in cold marble. And that night, I just thought I was going to die. And I looked out. I was straight across from the nurses' station, and they look right through you. They won't answer you. They won't let you call out. And the doctor would keep going up and down the halls, the young doctor, and he would look right through you. And I said, "You lied to me." And he passed back, "But you lied to me." Never they acknowledge you. And that night, I was just in such a pudendal attack. I know now that's what it was. Plus, I had a horrible migraine. I was in the bathroom floor, just almost passed out from the pain. And one of my doctors, the specialist, told me after that, when I finally found one, "You can stroke out from this kind of pain." But I lay on that cold marble floor, weeping and trying to hang on and begging to die, and then holding my head against the cold concrete wall to try to battle the migraine that I had. And the lady in the room finally got the nurse's attention and said, "You've got to help her." Well, all they did is make me get up, and with a migraine, you're vomiting and everything. But they made me get up, and they gave me one 800 ibuprofen out of my pocketbook. That was it. Didn't take care of the headache, nothing. The next morning, they got me up very early, sent me down to arts and crafts, and I said, "I'm not doing this." I walked back up to my room. They wouldn't let me call back, but they sent a psychiatrist. "You will meet with him." And all he did is point his finger in my nose and said, "You're just an addict. You're just an addict." And I said, "Excuse me?" I said, "I don't even take the meds the doctors tell me to take." "You're an addict. You need to admit it. You're an addict." And he had two students behind him. They just kept shrinking into their seat. And I said, "Have you ever had a baby?" This is a man. And of course not, but he kept sneering at me. I said, "If you could picture yourself having a baby, that's what's happening to me now." I was crowning a baby for 6.5 years, and the bones were coming out my anal for 6.5 years, the big bones. That's the sensation that you have. And yet he kept sticking his finger into my nose saying, "You're just an addict." And I stood up and said, "I don't have to listen to this." And I walked out, and he said, "You'll be back," just like that, sneering. "You'll be back. You're just an addict." And anyway, I got out, and I was standing at the nurse's station, and they finally let me call my sister, who lives 8 miles away, and she in turn called my husband in Pittsburgh. And he was corporate level, but he had been telling them that I might have to go, guys. My wife has some kind of mysterious, awful disease. So my sister came immediately, and my husband got a flight immediately, and he evidently gave them a horrible tongue lashing. But the head of nursing came down, and she tried her best to talk me into staying, and I let her know what had happened to me, how horrible they had been. And my female doctor, primary doctor, was making rounds that night, the night that I was there. And she had put me off in the office when I was just so desperate. She wasn't interested at all. She was busy having her babies. And I hope and pray. They could have called my doctor. I had to list her. They could have called her and she could have verified what I had, but she didn't, and they didn't call my primary doctor. And anyway, I have since given her a book and written in front, this is so when you have another patient like me, you'll know what she has. But anyway, my sister came, I left, my husband came, well, they both, and I was out of there. But I did a horrible, big, I'm usually not a vengeful person, but they were so awful, and I swore I'd never go back to that hospital again. I'd seen them all my life let people die, my dad included. But I had nothing else I knew to do that Sunday afternoon. But it's that horrible. And out of all the people, I was talking worldwide because there's a group worldwide. I forget the official name now, but there is a group that talks worldwide, and people in the U.S. Connect through them also with pudendal entrapment or the suicide disease. And people have committed suicide on the phone with me after people started calling me. All you can do at that point is just pray them through it. It's the saddest thing in the world. They'll just call crying and begging, Judy. And what can you do at that point? Nothing. But this disease, you cannot live with it. You cannot live with it. So that is what inspired me to write this little book. After 6.5 years of studying and grappling, and I went to mountain doctors. I didn't know it was a cult at one time, but my neighbor, she said, I see you out there. I had set up a place. My yard was just a garden, and I brought from Pittsburgh most of my garden. And anyway, I had a platform, and I'd gotten a bed and piped my music out there. And I mostly stayed out there, and I had a therapy pool. I mostly stayed out there and prayed and cried all day because I was in such agony. And she says, I see you out here every day weeping and begging. Would you consider going to someone a former pastor of mine has recommended? I said, I would do anything in this world to try to find some kind of relief. Well, we got up at 4 a.m. on a Sunday morning and headed over to Charlotte, North Carolina. And we walked in and we thought, this is a very strange church. And I walked up to the so-called pastor and I said, I'm here for prayer. And he said, oh, go up those stairs. There's somebody up there that'll take care of you. Just brushed me off. And the strange thing about this is Satan knows scripture too. I'm going to get biblical here on you. Satan knows scripture too. All that week I'd studied in James, 7 particular verses in James. And I want you to know that cult, I didn't know it was a cult until I talked to my pastor's son or my minister's son. Anyway, he got up and talked on those 7 verses in James. And there was dancing going on and this artwork going on in the back. And she and I both, we were a little scared. I'd never seen such a thing. And then afterwards, a group gathered and prayed over you and put their hands on your forehead and kept saying, do you feel it? Do you feel it? Are you healed? Are you still hurting? And kept pressing on my forehead. And I said, no, I don't feel a thing. And they just insisted I felt it. And I didn't. So they finally finished up. And my friend and I didn't say a word to each other. We'd driven 4 hours over there from Knoxville and got in the vehicle. And she said, did you think that was strange? And then I told her about the 7 Bible verses that I had been memorizing and studying on. James is a wonderful book. But anyway, she said, oh, it was so strange. She said, I got scared. And so that was our experience with the cult. I won't be going back to any more cults. So I called my son, who's now a chaplain at Camp Pendleton for the Marines. But he said, it was Morningside Church in Charlotte, North Carolina. He said, Mother, didn't you know they were a cult? I said, no, I thought they were a church because a pastor recommended them. But I did that, and I went to Mountain Doctors, who gave me an elixir of black walnut and whiskey. I had never tasted whiskey in my entire life. We're teetotalers down here. And anyway, she prayed and insisted I would be healed. And someone had told me about her, and I was game for anything. That's how horribly hurt and close to trying to die that I was. And I didn't dare let anybody know that I had that. But she said, you're going to be healed. So I drank that stuff every morning and every night. And I finally thought, well, this is stupid. I didn't feel a thing. But I also had the therapy pool, and so many times I would pray and say, God, I know that this is an easy way to go. All I know is I could go down and just breathe once, and I don't have to live like this anymore. I've never told my family all of this, but there's a reason this disease is called the suicide disease. And not long ago, I told my specialist in Chattanooga, you cannot live with this disease. And he says, I know you can't. But we have 2 doctors in this nation. But after 6.5 years, we got a name for the disease. The precursor to the disease is Levator syndrome, and that's the big muscle that runs across both our orifices. But anyway, I went to a specialist who did that, and Pudendal at University of Tennessee in Chattanooga. He saved my life. He literally saved my life. Now, the exam was the most horrific thing that I've ever gone through. And he warned me. He says, this is going to be the most painful thing that you have ever gone through in your life. And I said, I'll just hold on here and pray. He said, no, I will too. But I kicked his head, his belly, his everything. But they have to examine to see where to put the numbing needles. And it's so painful that you almost can't bear for them to examine you. But anyway, that was after that was in 2009 that I found him. And anyway, he did internal blocks. And that's what saved my life at first. And then they stopped working. So it was back to the same old pain again. But I put out a worldwide plea. All I knew was that group that I had been talking to in Europe. And my husband gave me an iPad for anniversary. And I put out a worldwide plea. Anybody, anywhere that knows any way to help me. And by then I knew a name, Pudendal. And I was in my back haven, my garden, and all I could do is lie. I couldn't do a thing except lie. I couldn't sit. And I just lay and studied and listened to my music. And a doctor contacted me in less than 5 minutes. And for him to be able to get that message, I consider nothing less than a miracle. Well known, he considered himself the pioneer of the surgery. He was the first to go learn it from the doctor who created it in France. And when this doctor retired from Mayo as a urologist, his wife was a pain counselor, and she said, you've got to help these people. She had talked to so many, because a lot of times we get sent to urologists and they can't help us one bit. Neither can back surgeons. And I knew many, many people that lost every cent they had, their income, their IRAs, and they couldn't work. And we've taken in a lot of people that had nothing. They had no place to live. They couldn't do anything. They'd lost everything. But anyway, he contacted me in less than 5 minutes. He listed the other 3 that had learned the surgery, and they're all gone now. But anyway, this was in year 13. And he listed his credentials last. And well-renowned surgeon at Mayo. And then how many of the pudendals he'd done. And he had worked on the Queen of Nepal and taught all over the world. And there was no doubt who I was going to go with. And talked to him, and he got me in there as fast as he could. And I still weighed 88 pounds, and I would not have been alive very much longer. You can't eat when you're in pain. You just can't. And then they did a bilateral surgery, and that's through both sides of your rear, about an 8 to 10 inch scar. And they go in and pull all the nerves up and put them on something like a hanger and separate. And mine, he said, I've never seen anything like it in my life. Your left pudendal was in a cotton styrofoam ball, all bound up. And a cottony styrofoam, he sent that off. But he said it was so bound up, this surgery lasted over 6.5 hours. But anyway, he put it, combed them all, separated all of them, and then they're coated with I call it space age, and he did too, something that will not let them entangle again. And that was the left side of me. Then he went over to the right. This pudendal nerve goes back and forth and weaves back and forth in your pelvic and lower abdomen, not your gut. But that's why I say I'm in 3 layers. We are in 3 layers. But anyway, he went to my right side and pulled it up and stretched all the nerves out. And he said on that right side, it had gone so many times around the big fan-shaped iliac bone that it was thinner than dentifloss. And then it connected to the spine. And he said, you wouldn't have been here very long. But he said, I have never, ever seen a case like that. Well, after my surgery and before my surgery, when I knew that I had found a physician had found me, I let the world know, because so many of us had been pleading and begging with each other overseas and everywhere. If you know anyone, if you hear of anyone, we'll go anywhere. And anyway, I put out 2 YouTubes, and from then on, I spent 4 hours or so every day talking to people and telling them we had help and where to go and how to get there. And I talked to people from Brazil and Venezuela. And just about 2 months ago, a girl from Israel called, and not Israel, and not Jordan, one of the other Middle Eastern countries. And I could tell she was young, and she was so desperate, and she was crying. And she said, I sound just like you. She had evidently studied everything that I put out. And I said, if you could get here, because we bought some airline tickets, but I could not buy from where she was, Jordan, I guess. And I just couldn't buy. My surgery in Minnesota with the first surgeon was $710,000. And his fee was only $12,000, enough to pay the nurse. He didn't charge me anything. But anyway, we just couldn't pay an airline ticket for her to get here. But I said, if there's any way in this world for you to get here, we will get you to my specialist, my surgeon, and he won't let anybody die. when they get to the hospital and to the ER, he just won't let you die. But anyway, there's the story. And so many people, men too, have called. And some have called before they're committing suicide, as they were committing suicide, because you can't live with it. And my husband and I have said many times over, I guess women in the olden days used to just crawl, or men too, used to just crawl away and die somewhere, because you can't possibly live with it. That's why it's named a suicide disease. And my first surgeon had seen so many, and he started a clinic teaching 25 surgeons, renowned surgeons, how to do the surgery. And as he retired, he did my surgery at 81. But when he finally retired, he was so angry. Not one of those surgeons learned pudendal surgery well enough to do it. And, he was so angry, but he continued to see people that I would send to a small clinic he had set up. And if I sent them, he would see them. But later on, I got somewhat better after that, but I developed scar tissue. So we got to move to Florida for 4 years, and I just got worse and worse and worse. And so many doctors will lead you on. And the last attempt was a neurosurgeon in Miami, the head of the neuros, all the neuros in Atlanta, in Miami. And so he was brilliant. Saw me, had me get all new MRIs, everything new he wanted. And he said, have they not shown you this and this and this and this? He said, get everything new, be here Friday morning ready to go into the hospital, Miami University. We raced. I did everything, moved heaven and earth to get everything new. We raced down there by Friday morning. He walked in the office. He was very arrogant. He could hardly speak his name, didn't shake my hand, barely looked at the new MRIs. In fact, he didn't. They were up on the wall where the girl had put them. But walked in the door, said, I can't help you. He had decided that week he was not going to help me. And so there I am, broken again. And that was after one other surgeon had led me on. And when he was through with all of his stuff down there, I thought he was a godsend, because my friend had found a newspaper article, and he had advertised that he did pudendal repair work. Well, I thought I'd die when he examined me, but after all of, I had to have some machinery out of me, you shock yourself. I had to have that out of me, but after all that he did for ever how long it took, the last meeting I had with him, he came in and said, now we're going to do 8 months of biofeedback. I said, you're going to what? Because I'd already had the one surgery, and I didn't know I'd developed scar tissue, but I had. And I said, you're going to what? And I said, there's no way biofeedback is going to help this nerve inside me. And he said, I'm the doctor here. I think I know what I'm doing. I said, well, if you're talking biofeedback, you don't. And I wept, and I wept, and I couldn't get out. I was weeping so hard. And the girls at the desk, the nurses at the desk were going, I know, honey, I know. And he was standing there still waiting for me to make an appointment. And I said, you don't know. Unless you're standing right here having a baby, you don't know. And I finally got up enough standing to be able to walk out to my car. I cried in my car about an hour, called my niece in California, or my daughter-in-law in California, went over to a parking lot because couldn't get any further in a mall, and called my surgeon in Minneapolis and told him what had happened. He was like a wonderful granddaddy. And he said, get on a plane and come up. He said, I will treat you. I will fill you full of shots. he didn't do what the people that did bilateral surgery on both sides of your rear, they don't open you up again. That was the bad thing. They don't open you up again. And so he said, just come. I'll give you enough blocks that it will help you, and then I'll work on you. But I got back up to Venice, Florida, and wept the whole way. And another doctor in Miami was supposedly a specialist. And I called his nurse, and my papers finally got through to her again before we left Miami. My papers were under about 3 feet of papers, and on there it said, refer her to Dr. I've forgotten his name now. He was in New Jersey, but he's dead. He'd been dead a long time. Refer her to Dr. So-and-so. He hadn't bothered to call me, nothing. But anyway, I got back up to Venice, and I just thought my husband had to go to a GI doctor, and I was weeping so hard in the parking lot. I talked to my surgeon at Dr. Anilak for about an hour, and he said, just come, get on a plane and just come. And on the way home to Venice, I just stopped at my husband's surgeon, and I was crying. I know people think I was crazy. I could hardly walk. I was holding onto the wall and everything. And I begged a surgeon to please see me, and he did for 1 minute. And I told him what it was, holding onto the wall or his half door. And he said, come back Monday or tomorrow or something like that. And I didn't think I'd live that long. And we got on the Google again. I'll finish up with this. We got on the Google again, and Dr. Furr in Chattanooga, his name ran through my head. I can't consider this anything but a miracle. I'd never heard of him, didn't know him from Adam. Dr. Furr's name ran through my head. So I called up there, and Ben was on one machine, and I was on the Google on the other. I called up there, and I said, I want to know if you know of anyone in that area that does pudendal surgery now. Oh, he does that now. I dropped the phone, and I wept, and I wept, and I wept. And then Ben picked it up. But finally, I was able to talk to her, and she said, the sad thing is he's booked out over a year. I said, I won't be here. And I knew I wouldn't. I was nothing but bones and could hardly stand. And I heard somebody walk in, and she said, let me go talk to somebody. And she came back and said, can you be here Wednesday? This was Monday morning. And I'd seen the Miami doctor on Friday. I said, absolutely. And he saw me, and he said, I'm not touching you in the condition you are. Gave me some meds to get prepared for it. And he did a surgery and saved my life. First of all, endometriosis was wrapped around toward my heart and ribs, and then scar tissue was all around my lower half. He literally saved my life, and he's who I see to this day, and he's who I send, and he's the only other surgeon we have besides another 85-year-old in Pennsylvania, and we have a group in Arizona, but as far as I know, they don't do the surgeries. So that's it on my story. That's what inspires me to try to help other people.
Judy, this has been absolutely fantastic, and all the information that you've relayed is so, so profound. The only other question that I could ask is, what is next? What's upcoming? Where do we go from here?
Well, with this book, I am praying that, and I've got some good promoters. I am praying that the medical field will pick up on it. I can't tell you how many doctors have looked me in the face and said, I've never heard the word. And when I'm in the hospital, if I see a resident or if they're near me working or whatever, that's the only place I go is doctors and hospitals. I say, I don't know if money is your object, But if it should be, you can make millions if you will learn this surgery. There are that many of us. My first surgeon says there are thousands, and he should know because he's talked to people all around the world. But my prayer is that the medical field will see this, and I have advertised as much as I can. And then the prayer is that the suicidal people will have the hope of surgery, and not everybody gets scar tissue. I don't want to leave them with that thought that something can come back, because not everybody does that. Many, many people go on to live healthy, wonderful lives, have children, live their retirement beautifully. I'm just one of those exceptions. But if I died, the word would be, you're not going to be like me. That's the word I would leave with people. It doesn't mean you'll be like me, because I just go for my blocks, and should there be more scar tissue, my specialist will get that out. But they don't have to be like me. That's what I will leave it with. And I just pray that suicides will get this message. And then more than anything, more than two doctors. One is 85 and my doctor's about 45 and works constantly, and they can't possibly keep up.
There you have it. People, listen.
So that's my ending statement.
There you go. Judy, what a profound interview this has been. People, listen. If this interview hasn't moved you, pinch yourself. I don't know what's going on, okay? I'm going to say it for you once more. I know I don't have to, but let's just re-impress it, okay? Amazon and Barnes & Noble are the places you have to go. Fighting to Survive is the title you have to pick up, and Judy V Rentz is the author you have to thank for bringing this wonderful book to your table. Let's grow, let's develop, let's educate ourselves, and it starts with this amazing narrative. Judy, this has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you once again for being a guest on People of Distinction.
Thank you, Benjie. I'm so glad that I got to share this. And I just pray that there will be people that will hear this message and gain hope from this message.